Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another stellar edition of Moon Township's #1
and only
homebrew and craft beer TV show,
Yinz Brewin.
So, I'm Adam.
And I'm Steve.
And we are also the hosts of one of Pittsburgh's premier podcasts when it comes to craft beer, Hop Nation USA. So that gives us at least a little bit of credence.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing that for about a year. So I think now we can start into the realm of TV.
Yes, I mean,
take over that way.
it's the natural progression of things.
Right.
So the topic that we're going to cover tonight is a topic that every person that has ever made a beer before has talked about around the beer kettle.
Yeah, or just in a bar.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be a brewer to talk about opening your own brewery.
And that age-old question. So, you want to open a brewery? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about some of the trials and tribulations. We have a special guest here tonight. We'll bring on a little bit later. He has all sorts of insight into the ways and means of what it would take to actually open a brewery. And I actually really look forward to that conversation.
Yeah, I think it'll be actually really helpful for people who are interested in opening a brewery, but not necessarily considering a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of hardships that can come across your plate that you don't know about. And unless you've talked to brewers who have already opened their own space, you're not going to hear those stories and you're not going to get that kind of insight. But we've seen it time and again with a lot of breweries in the area that they lose rights to their space or they're coming up against things with the PLCB. And I think it's just important to hear about those kind of things before you try to jump into that realm.
Right. It seems like it's a very easy thing to do. You've been brewing in your driveway, in your garage, in your basement for 3 or 4 years. You got everything down pat. You figure that, you know what, now is the time to jump ahead. But like Steve said, there's all sorts of things that you don't necessarily know about. One of the adages I've always heard whenever you want to open a brewery is write down everything that you think it's going to cost to open a brewery, and then double it. That'll get you started into what it will actually cost to get a brewery started. Even here in Pittsburgh, in the local area, there are several stories of breweries having troubles trying to open up. Just a few examples. Insurrection down in Heidelberg. The first week they were open, they ran out of beer, which in all honesty is a good problem.
Yeah.
Because that means that a lot of people showed up to enjoy their beer, but that's, from a business standpoint, isn't so great. Voodoo in Homestead, when they first opened, they had a large issue where they weren't actually allowed to serve you a beer. So what they had to do was they had to paint a little white line across their bar, and they had to place the beer on the white line, and you had to pick it up. That way, they were not technically serving you a beer. So there are all sorts of different little things that, people don't think about.
There's also issues with whether or not your space is a place that you can own or is it a place that you lease. Is everything up to code where you're brewing your beer? There's a very famous, rather infamous story with the Mexican War Streets Brewing and all the troubles that they had trying to get their own space open. And it still never came to fruition the way they wanted. Mm-hmm. But eventually they did get to have their own space and as a beer port.
Yes, and so I am glad that they are able to provide the beers that, and I know they make good beers. I've had their beers before, even when they were still in the home brewing stage.
We competed against Jake Beer and we lost as well as we should have.
Yes, I believe the proper term is we got smoked.
Yes.
So what do you say we enjoy the beers that we have right in front of us now? Mm-hmm. We'll get into the trials and tribulations a little bit later, but let's worry about what we have right in front of us now. Steve, what do you have percolating in that? What is that thing?
It's not one coffee percolates. But what I'm enjoying is a blonde ale by previous guest Bubba, and we'll insert some file footage of him here.
Yes.
But he brewed a rather hoppy blonde ale, and I think it's pretty good. I like it. I'm not the biggest fan of blonde ales, but this is passing the test.
And honestly, that's all you need to ask for.
Yeah.
As long as it passes the Steve test.
Yeah.
Myself, I have a wit beer from a friend of the show, Steve Kubis. We haven't had him on the show yet, but we're getting him lined up sooner rather than later.
File footage here.
That's right. But this is a fine wit beer. It's actually a very good example. I believe it was brewed last fall So it has a little bit of time of being conditioned, but it is still a fantastic beer. As you can see, it's got a very nice white head like you would expect to see.
Yeah, it definitely held its carbonation.
Yes. So I am enjoying this beer. This isn't just a show beer. This is actually a very legitimately good beer, and I'm going to bug him for some more. So what do you say we take a quick break?
We'll bring our guest on, and then we'll really get into the meat of, well, I was going to say meat and potatoes, but that's a restaurant.
Right. What do you say we get into just, the meat?
The thick of it. The thick of it, yeah.
There we go. So, Yinz Brewing, we will be right back. Welcome back. We are here to talk about beers again, and as you can see, we have a fresh set of beers set up right in front of us. These ones are a little bit darker than what we had previously. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve. We're going to profile this beer that we have, and then we're going to jump right into the Q&A.
All right, so the beer we have in front of us is a Raspberry Blueberry Carolina Reaper Stout. And I believe we had this on the show in the first episode, but we didn't really profile it as much as we could. I was just sitting and drinking it selfishly. But this is one that was actually brewed by myself and Adam. And it's going to be about 4.2% on the alcohol. It's not very boozy at all. It's pretty thin. And it also comes with the notes of fruit and just a little bit of spice from the Carolina Reaper. Despite that being the hottest pepper in the world, it's actually pretty tame within this beer. Mm-hmm. So we're going to take some taster notes, but at first I want to introduce our guest tonight, Abbie Rosario. And he is a lawyer who's here to help us navigate the world of should we open a brewery.
I'll try to do that for you.
Yeah.
The voice of reason.
But first, we're going to give you a Carolina Reaper beer and see if you choke up at all.
All right.
So, cheers.
Yes, here.
Cheers.
Well, that's one of my favorite stouts I ever brewed.
So as it turns out, I still like this beer.
Yeah, of course. But I guess our opinion's
Spicy.
Yeah.
Not bad though.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. Maybe you can pass that along to who you represent. Which, maybe give yourself a little more introduction of exactly what you do in the world of law and.
Okay. Well, I've been practicing law for quite a while now, close to a decade though. But I started getting into beer law later on in my career. That started out though as I became friends though with a brewer himself and helped him basically start it up from the ground up though, still help him out to this day, taking care of all the licensing for them, all their labeling, and when things hit the fan, I basically have to help them out, figure out a way out of everything and making sure they continue selling their beer.
So was there anything in particular that drew you to that, or was it just your friend brought you in and then kind of realized, hey, this is a good avenue to take, and just sort of kept going down that way, or how did things progress?
I started getting involved in beer myself though when I was in law school. That's when I started getting into craft beer a lot myself, and then going through. I lived in Las Vegas though, where I went through classes though on different types of beer, how to taste the beer, how to go through everything, and got them on Tapped for everything on that. And then my wife and I went to a wedding in Colorado, and that's where I met my friend who his wife was the same friend my wife was with, and kind of hit it off from there. And that was back in 5 years ago or so. And since then, been hitting it off though. And I was like, I can help you out. I'm an attorney and help you get everything started going up, and helping them out though with the whole doing a DBA for them, or doing a business as paperwork, and also helping out with operating agreement though to get the brewery up and running completely, and still helping them out, like I said. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
On a personal note, have you ever homebrewed yourself? Like you said, you're in a craft beer, but have you taken that extra step further and done a brew yourself?
I have read lots of books and magazines and articles about it, and I even have some equipment for it though, but I haven't had the chance to do it though. I haven't had the opportunity to take the next step though and start homebrewing. But it is something though that I do want to start doing myself, since I do love beer quite a bit.
So it sounds like next time we have a brew day, we got to make an extra phone call, invite you over.
Sounds excellent.
Make some beer, drink some beer.
Sounds excellent.
It's a beautiful thing.
That's the cycle. Don't ever brew beer unless you're drinking beer as well.
It's a cardinal rule.
Yeah.
So, are there any breweries here in the Pittsburgh area?
At the Pittsburgh area that I've helped out though. Sorry about that. But I've not yet though. Okay. I have actually been trying to ask them if they had any questions, but most of the times though they seem to be okay. That I'm more than willing to take over their labeling licensing, which can be a pain to deal with because you have to deal with the federal government and the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board for each label. So it's just trying to go through all of that with them, and it's a hassle that brewers can generally basically be like, I don't want to deal with it because it's something it takes time many times to deal with it though.
They sort of go with the hands-off approach and just tell me if this is okay or not, and then...
It's not just that though, many times though, you'll get to the point though that they try to see how far they can push the boundaries.
So you just brought up how there is a difference between kind of the federal level and the state level, and a news story that actually kind of came out pretty recently was Sam Adams was hit with a $1.4 million fine because their labeling wasn't in accordance with the way that New York likes to have their labeling done.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So is there anything more specific for like PA that you could tell us about, like the way they kind of go through labeling? Because PA has their own crazy liquor laws.
They all have their own crazy stuff to go through. Each state has their own individual things that they do. The first thing you do is, like, say, for example, your beer here, your Weber beer. Mm-hmm. If you guys want to get this one start selling here in Pennsylvania, you have to have your label.
Okay.
Create your fancy looking label, whatever kind of graphics you want, or if you just want to call it Reaper, that's fine. But you got to have your actual label. You got to submit that to the federal government. The federal government has to see what it is. And depending on the type of beer, they may ask you to submit your actual formula that you put in, what ingredients you put into the actual beer itself. Oh. And that process, though, can take anywhere from 3 days to about 21 days or so. Typical turnaround time, though, for the federal government. And if you use certain ingredients in your beer, though, that's not typical for a beer, there's times you now have to get the FDA involved to make sure that that substance that you're putting into the beer is consumable for somebody. Because you can't just start putting anything in it.
Right.
It has to be something that can be consumed. After the federal government gets their part taken care of, and that's proved, that's then called a certificate of approval for label approval, basically. But it's called shortened COLAs. That's what they're called. Okay. And so once you get that, then you can take that approval to Pennsylvania. Okay. And then Pennsylvania will ask you, you can submit it online. It costs $75 to do it for Pennsylvania for each label, and that's paid every year for each label that you have. You pay $75 for it.
Oh wow!
And that's expensive, but it's not that bad.
Right? Yeah.
Like other states are more expensive than that, though. New York, I think it's $150 per beer. Other states don't charge anything. Like Georgia doesn't charge anything at all for any of the beers. Tennessee's, I think Virginia was $30. Tennessee was nothing, but Pennsylvania, $75.
Yeah.
But once you get the federal government to approve it, Pennsylvania kind of just rubber stamps it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that's not terribly expensive for somebody on our level to just get like a beer out there. But like, I was thinking more on the line of like these bigger breweries, especially Rivertown, because they have a pretty big distribution net, and they just rebranded like all of their beers. So they had to resubmit to every state for all of those beers?
It depends.
Okay.
On the actual change that you're doing. I mean, if it's a full name change, then yeah, you'll have to obviously do that though. But it's just a little graphics change. Most of the time it's not a problem.
Oh, okay.
There is some leeway though when it comes to the actual approvals, like what you need to give them and what you don't, if there's a change or not. But Pennsylvania won't care too much necessarily though. It's the federal government that will have more say on that one. If you change that, because that COLA applies to every single state that you're trying to send it to.
Have you ever helped a home brewer go from the home brewer level to the brewer level on the commercial side of things? Have you ever stepped somebody through that process before?
I came in when my friend was like, they were already in a storage locker.
Okay.
So they graduated from their garage and went to a storage locker, but they were still in the infancy of everything though. So they had finally registered their actual brewery though with the state, but with a different name that they were actually using, which is why I told them you need to submit doing a business as required document, the DBA, shortened what that means, because you can't just call yourself the Adam and Steve Brewing Company, and then all of a sudden you change it to ABC. No, you got to do a DBA.
You have to be consistent.
You can do it, but you have to make sure it stays aware of it, though, so that way when you do file for your COLAs and everything, though, it's all set in order and proper. But when it comes to starting things out, I mean, I've helped out other companies, though, create something, though, but as far as a brewery, though, he was the first one that I helped out with, though.
Cool. So you were kind of there, you said you were there when they were in a storage locker.
Yes.
So you've seen them step through into a real space now.
Yes.
Did you have any input on, like, is it better for them to lease or buy the property? Is that general advice for anybody?
That advice can be basically for many people, because whether to decide to lease or buy, it depends on their financial situation. Because buying is obviously going to be more expensive. But it's not just the building is more expensive than the actual rent's going to cost you. You got to think about bringing that building up to code, making sure that it's going to take all your tanks and everything that's going to go with the actual brewery. You have to make sure it has enough water supply, because there's, as you know, making beer, water is a lot.
It's the lifeblood.
used. So you got to make sure you have all that capacity. The electricity has to be in there as well. And going with purchasing a building, though, whether you want to make it this awesome looking place, make another church brewworks type of look and everything, though, but that's a lot of money. And if you can't get the financing associated with that, whether it's loans through a bank or through investors, a leasing may be a better option for a lot of people. And with a lease, you just got to make sure you get the right contract, so that way you can go on ahead and get out if you need to. And with the lease, you also have the option to go other places, though, if you don't like that location. Whether if you buy, that's your location. Because in real estate, it's always location.
Right.
So you got to think of it that way. You got to see where you are financially, and then when you realize that, then you can make your pros and cons as yourself. Though, okay, rent is going to be X amount, and with this place, though, I can easily move everything in, no problem. I don't have to worry about the water. I don't have to worry about electricity. This is a rundown place over here. I'm going to buy it. It's a whole lot cheaper, but I got to bring it up to code. That's a lot of money. So it's really just a financial problem. Like, you have to see where you are financially yourself.
Yeah. Going back to what we mentioned at the top of the first segment, I think you touched on it, that water is one of the biggest problems.
Yes.
And Mexican War Streets had that problem in that they were leasing a place, but the water was not up to code, and I believe the landlord was not willing to bring the water up to code for them to use. So
when it comes to dealing with the actual landlord situation, though, like before you sign on the dotted line, try to see if you can do the testing yourself. See if what you can do already, though, at that location. If the water's fine, that's great. If not, do you have to get a reverse osmosis system put in there? Do you have to? I mean, Pittsburgh's water is not the greatest,
right? Yeah.
So you have to take that into account as well. And if you see how this landlord works with other things, be like, I don't know if I want to deal with them, because if something does happen, I want to make sure I'm not going to be on the hook for a lot of things. So that you would see also in your lease that you sign, who is responsible for what. So whenever you get that lease, though, don't just sign it. Don't just try to Google what these terms mean. Go talk to somebody that
call somebody who knows
what to look for, so that you don't make a mistake, though, then in the end it's going to cost you a lot of headaches. So
have you ever had somebody approach you, a home brewer that makes fantastic beer, and they say, I have to open a brewery, but once you've kind of laid everything out to them, what has to be done, all the hurdles, all the red tape, that they've just said, you know what, I'm not interested anymore. I'm going back to my garage.
That happens to a lot of people, though, that don't really realize what everything that it takes to open up a brewery. And the primary thing that people don't realize is that while you're having fun doing this in your garage, you're opening a business. That is your goal number one, is a business. And you're making beer on it too, but you got to make sure this thing runs well. You got to take care of a lot of things that don't have anything to do at all with beer. And people don't realize that. And running a business is not fun necessarily. Where you're having fun making beer at home, that's going to be like maybe 10% of your actual life at that point then, because your business has come first. And I've noticed that myself, though, my friend's brewery, because they've had a lot of ups and downs with several situations going at the brewery, and that's mistakes, so that they didn't realize going in. So as long you guys got to make sure you pre-plan everything before you take that final
So
step.
be a business owner first and a brewer second.
Yes. Or sorry about that, but
No, go ahead.
Or you can go on ahead and do the two of you, for example. One of you can do the beer. The other one's a business-minded person that focuses on the business-oriented stuff. They'll make sure that the business is making money because you can't forget you're there to make money.
Right.
You're not there just to make beer. You're there to make money because or else you're just doing a charity of beer.
Is there any other kind of like freedoms or anything that a home brewer doesn't know that they have and that they would lose trying to become an actual brewer or trying to become a business?
Yes, because if you try to become a business, though, at making your beer there, you don't have the capability, though, of doing whatever beer you want, anytime you want, with whatever ingredients that you want. As I mentioned earlier, you need to, if it's a certain ingredient that's not been approved previously by the FDA, you have to get them to approve that ingredient before you can put it in your beer. And that can cause a lot of delays, because even though the Trade and Tobacco Bureau, which is who does the actual labeling for the federal government, they are very quick on their stuff. The FDA can take their time. Like right now, I'm waiting on an FDA response on something for one brewery, and I haven't gotten it yet. So that can be a matter of days, weeks, or months. It really depends on them, and that means that beer is now shelved until you get that approval. Whereas a home brewer, you can do whenever you want. And if you home brew and you mess up a batch, that's just one brew that's going down the toilet or the sink. If you mess up a brew in a brewery, that is a lot of beer. That's a lot of money that's just lost right there. So that's big freedom, though, that home brewers don't realize that they have that moment, though. Like, it messes up, I lost whatever the cost was for the ingredients, that's it. But as a brewery, you lost all those sales as well. So think of it that way.
So is there any sort of rule of thumb for how long it would take for a brewery to open from, I want to open a brewery, to, I now have a brewery and I can pour beer? I know it varies widely, but is there any sort of rule of thumb or any sort of guidance to what somebody could expect?
If all the stars align, then you're probably looking at a minimum of maybe like 7 months or so. But in reality, you're probably looking more in between 10 to 18 months or so.
So you have to be committed to this.
You have to be
This
committed to it, yes.
dream.
Because you have to do the federal government licensing first to make sure that you are, actually, question. You have to go register with the state as a business first. Then you get your federal tax identification number for the business. Then you apply for your actual alcohol license from the federal government. Then you can be a brewery. Then you go to Pennsylvania, apply for the Pennsylvania one. But the Pennsylvania one requires you to have an actual location already. Okay. And because Pennsylvania has to inspect that location. And that process can take a while. And there's a lot of money involved with all of these things. The federal government doesn't charge for their thing, fortunately. But Pennsylvania charges, I think it's about $1,700 or so right now that they charge to opening it up. And so you got to think of that cost, and then you got to think about the cost of the building itself, and the cost of the ingredients, and if there's any staff, and then there's insurance, and I mean things just keep adding up with everything. And if you are really going to start one, the first thing you should probably do is create a business plan of what you want to do, and be like, okay, in year one, I expect this amount of sales, this amount of expenses, and it's obviously going to be obviously higher because there's a lot of startup costs with everything. Then you go to year 2, year 3, and that way you can project yourself out, and you have something laid out at least, though, so that way you can see, okay, this is going to be a success if by year 2 I'm doing this, or if I need to maybe things differently.
Yeah, that's a lot of good information.
Oh, there's a lot more.
Yeah, sure there is.
Well, I'm sure you could have your own show just dedicated to that topic itself. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Stick around for this next segment.
Sure.
What do you say we take a quick break?
Yeah, we'll take a quick break and come back with something Adam has planned.
Yes,
All
I
right.
do. So we'll be right back with another segment for Yinz Brewing. So welcome back, everybody, to the final segment of Yinz Brewing. And usually here on the show we like to end on a little bit of a lighter note. So, of course, what we're going to do is we're going to pit these two against each other in a battle of wits, in a battle of knowledge.
Oh, good.
So, bring your A game, bring your A game, and a little game that I've concocted called Lawyers, Guns, and Money.
Here's my problem. I always bring my A game, and usually I win if you go back and check the episodes. However, true. Adam is known for cheating me out of games.
No, I just go in favor of the guest.
Cheating me out of games.
Yeah, there's that too. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an opportunity. You want to go in the category of lawyers, guns, or money? Steve, since you were complaining, I will give you first choice. Do you want to go with lawyers, guns, or money?
Squeaky wheel gets the oil, and we'll take the category of guns.
Guns, okay. What local brewery derives its name from the Whiskey Rebellion of 1791? Is it Cobblehouse Brewing, Aurochs Brewing, or Insurrection Ales?
Well, it'd be Insurrection Ales. That's a rebellion name.
That was an easy one.
Of course it was. Cobblehouse is an old house made of cobblestones, and Aurochs is a bull.
Fair enough. So, we will move on to the next guns question, which is, and are you ready?
Sure.
All right. So, the next question is, which brewery does not share its name with a, what beer or brewery does not share its name with a type, make, or model of a gun? Is it the 1911 Vienna Lager by Breakside Brewery, the Buzz Bomb IPA by Desert Eagle Brewing, or Old Number 38 Stout by North Coast Brewing?
What was the first one again?
The first one was the 1911 Vienna Lager by Breakside Brewery.
I'll go with that one. I'm not a good gun person, so I don't know anything about guns.
So unfortunately, that is not correct.
I'm going to steal.
Go ahead, I'm not going to give you any points.
I know, of course you're not, but I might in editing. It's the Buzz Bomb.
You are also incorrect.
How am I incorrect?
Desert Eagle not?
The Desert Eagle.
Oh, I wasn't listening. I was thinking Buzz Bomb as far as an actual
incorrect.
bomb.
So by process of elimination, for those at home screaming at these two, telling them that they're both wrong, it is actually the Old Number 38 Stout by North Coast Brewing.
But honestly, I'm thinking about 38 Special, which is also a gun, so I think you're wrong.
No, it is actually named after a locomotive.
Oh. Huh.
Not a gun.
That is true. That's where there's a train on the actual label.
There you go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Neat.
So.
That is true. Now it's off my head entirely, the logo.
So, since you gave me that information, I'm going to give you a point.
Oh, look at that.
There. You are now tied.
Look. And here it goes.
That's right. I will give you the other opportunity, Steve.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead. You want to go with lawyers, guns, or money?
I'm going to go money.
Okay. According to Money Magazine, the most expensive beer of 2017 was which of the following? The Brewdog End of History,
Okay.
the Antarctic Nail Ale, or the Pabst Blue Ribbon 1844?
I'm not going to say Pabst Blue Ribbon. I'm not going to say that. That sounds like even if it's Pabst, it's still probably like $15 at most. Like that's their high end.
Right.
The Antarctic I have never heard of, but the Brewdog I have heard of. And that beer can fetch anywhere between $300 to $1,000. I believe it went even for $10,000 at a charity event at Columbus, Ohio. So I'm going to go with that one.
You are wrong.
Okay. What is it?
Well, since you had the opportunity to start.
No, I don't want to give him points.
It's only fair.
I'm going to have to agree with him with the Pabst one, though, so I'm going to say the Antarctica one.
You are correct. You are correct.
Can you give me more information about that? Because I've never heard of it before.
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
So I'll start off with the Pabst Blue Ribbon 1844. That is actually brewed for the Chinese market.
Okay.
Apparently, Pabst Blue Ribbon is very popular in the Chinese market. I had no idea. But that retails for approximately $44 a bottle.
Okay.
The Brewdog End of History, which if you ever listen to our podcast, you know that we've talked about it before. That's the one that is served in a stuffed squirrel.
Taxidermied.
Has a ABV of 55%.
Yeah.
That one, the max selling price of 2017 was only $765.
Okay. So they didn't count that charity event?
Correct.
All right.
Correct. The winner, the Antarctic Nail Ale, was a beer that was actually brewed using Antarctic ice.
Oh.
Yes. And it was actually a very, very limited edition of only about 30 bottles worth.
Oh.
And it was actually in support of the Sea Shepherd
The anti-whaling ship that they profiled. I think it was on Animal Planet a couple years ago.
Okay, sure.
But there was a single bottle that was sold for $1,850.
Oof.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a lot of beer.
That is a lot.
What's the ABV on that?
A bunch.
Really?
I assume.
Okay.
So,
It'd be terrible if it was only like 3. It was like a crappy table beer.
no. I'm pretty sure it brought the ruckus.
Fair enough.
So, money was the category chosen.
Yeah.
Money is the category you get. So, according to the Brewers Association, what state is not, I repeat, not in the top 5 of economic impact per capita when it comes to craft beer within the state? Your options are California, Montana, or Pennsylvania.
Montana.
That is your answer?
Wait, is a state that is not?
That is not in the top 5.
See, it was Colorado, Oregon, Pennsylvania.
3 seconds.
I'm gonna go with Montana because
There's hardly anybody there, but it said per capita, so
yeah, per
we'll see.
capita, the California then.
You are correct.
Yeah.
You are.
I gave him that one.
You did.
I helped him through it.
And the point.
I
just
understand.
So you know.
But I helped him through that one. I gave him that one.
California is not in the top 5. It only came in around $400 per capita. Montana actually came in with $549 per capita. And Pennsylvania was above and beyond that with $615.
Of course we were.
Per capita.
We have a population smaller than California, but we produce more beer than they do.
Right.
So yeah.
Exactly. So let me see here.
Are we on to the lawyers category now?
We are onto the lawyers category now. So would you like lawyer 1 or lawyer 2?
Lawyer 2.
Okay. So, Steve, are you ready?
No.
Too bad. According to the Brewers Association, with the assistance of their brewery lawyer, I just made that term up, but it sounds really nice. How many new breweries opened in 2017? Is it 264, 842, or 346?
I'm gonna go with 842.
You would be wrong.
Damn it.
Steel?
The 300.
Also wrong.
Okay, it's a 200.
It's 264.
Huh, okay.
Yes. There was a net gain of, I believe, about 15% over 2016.
Yeah, okay.
So, we are down to one final question. I'm going to take that point. So, I'm now in second place.
I'm gonna take the point for making questions too hard.
So, are you ready for the last redeeming question, even though you've already won?
Oh, then what's the
You
point?
can't lose at this point. So, Molson Coors owns Keystone, a low-cost lager. I'm sure everybody knows about it, has seen it, has enjoyed it in their day back in college. Recently, the company was sued by what brewery for copyright infringement? Was
Stone.
Come on, softballs.
it? Good enough. All right. So with a
Did you want to put that one up on a tee for him?
I mean, he already beat you with the regular.
I understand that, but it's one of the easiest questions. It's one of the biggest news stories that's been out there.
Wait, weren't you just complaining about it being too hard?
I was, and then you gave him a T-ball.
You picked lawyer 2 question.
Don't show
lawyer
my
you.
failings.
So with that landslide victory, I believe it is time for the prize.
It is time for the prize. Now, you mentioned earlier how you haven't done any home brewing yet. And one of the biggest parts of home brewing is when you actually get to the bottling process. So we want to present you with this empty bottle to get you started on your collection. 47 more, and you should have enough for a 5-gallon batch. And that'll get you 2 cases.
That's what I've always wanted.
So we just wanted to start you out with your prize.
That's what I always wanted.
So we'll have you back on 47 more times.
Yeah. When 47 more quiz shows, and then you'll have enough to bottle your own, beer.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
So we would like to thank you for being on the show. We do appreciate it. I appreciate it because you beat the snot out of him when it came to lawyers, guns, and money.
I feel like I actually might have lost that one legitimately.
I think you did. I think you did.
That sucks.
So with that, I will turn it over to Steve for our social media plugs.
Yeah, so if you want to find us and listen to us be stupid even more, you just listen to the Hop Nation USA podcast. We produce a weekly show. You can find us on iTunes or any other place that you can listen to podcasts. If you want to see more episodes of Yinz Brewin, then you just go onto the MCA website, mca-tv.org, and you should be able to find all of our episodes up there, and you can watch us, and you can watch me actually win the quiz shows. Just want to give a shout out to our sponsors. We have First Sip Brew Box. We had Dennis on an earlier episode, and he runs a craft beer Loot Crate subscription service, and they put out a lot of fine products that you can get every month. And then a little beer tasting, which is hosted by Christine, and that's a monthly beer tasting held at Patrick's Pub, and we have a great time there as well, and just trying new craft beers.
Yeah. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank the crew for helping us out. Without you guys, we would be just talking to nobody and talking about nothing. So we would like to thank you. And we hope to see you guys next time on the new episode of
Yinz Brewin?
Yinz Brewin.